Very good evening, friends, all over. This evening, I have decided to shed some light, or at least try to shed some light on what standard English is and how it is accepted across the world, and what could be some of the most defining criteria for worldwide acceptance of a kind of English, a variety of English that is to be taken as standard English. We all know that English was confined to the English Isles in the 16th century. And that used to be called a small reach of English. And now it's the global lingua franca, it's the global language. So we can say that from the small reach in the 16th century to the global reach in the 21st century, there is no country in the world where some percentage of the entire population doesn't make use of English, spoken or written, or in the spoken variety and the written variety, means in both the varieties, you write and you speak. So I mean to say that there's no country in the world where you don't have any people who don't write English, who don't speak English, who don't communicate in English. So this is the reason that English is the global language, everybody's language. When John Mulcaster, the headmaster of an English school, was confronted with the question as to why English tongue is not very much in currency, very much in vogue in France, in other parts of Europe in the 16th century. And then he had to answer that English has not spread out of the English Isles, and it will spread out in course of time. And then he might have spoken, you can say, as his dream, or as he wanted English to spread outside English Isles, but then that proved to be right. And he, if could be hearing now what I am speaking, he would be very happy to uh, hear that English, that once upon a time was his language and the language of the people of his islands, is now the language of everybody. The whole world has endeared English as a very powerful, very effective means of communication. Well, if a language is spoken by, suppose, a locality, a closed locality, then you don't have much scope for this discussion, standard variety of that language or non-standard variety of that language, because the language is spoken by a community, and outside the community, you don't have the use of that language. But when it comes to English, it's the world language. And in the world, we have more than 200 countries. And everywhere, English is spoken. English is used in the education system. There are 7 countries in the world where English is spoken as the mother tongue, as the first language, such as the US. And I should start with the UK, because England is the original home of English, which historically happened to be such because of the migrations of the West Germanic people to the English Isles and the interactions of the three tribal communities, the Angles, the Jutes, and the Saxons. So this is the historical fact that from the West Germanic branch of the Indo-European family of languages, English evolved. And from the English Isles, it started moving out, getting spread over all the areas in the world. So this question now is very relevant. What is the standard English? We also know this, that England is the home of English, from where English started getting spread across the society in the US, because the US was one of the colonies of the Britishers. And when the US became independent of the British rule, and there was a kind of controversy as to what should happen to English. English should be allowed to stay on as the official language, as the lingua franca of the American people, or some other substitute or alternative has to be sought or had to be sought. And the greatest of the greats of the American society, and mostly the scholarly people, the freedom fighters, the leaders, political leaders, and intellectuals, they favored the continuity of English. They didn't want to spend lots and lots of money and lots of time to have an alternative to English, because English had already taken home in the habits, linguistic habits of the American people. So my point is that the two most important varieties of English or variants of English, geographical varieties of English, the English and the US English. And both these are the standard Englishes, or both these varieties of English are standard varieties. But even within England, everybody doesn't speak the so-called standard English of England, that is called RP, received pronunciation, or alternatively, it's called the King's English. All the English people, they don't speak, they don't write the same way, because it's not possible. You have differences in pronunciations, more than differences in the spellings, because spellings or orthography cannot be changed, or orthography doesn't get changed as pronunciation gets changed, because of the distances, because of the occupation of the people, because of the level of education, because of the social background, because of how much you travel and all that. And the US variety of English is known as GP, General American Pronunciation. So the two varieties. So people all over the world, because these two countries have had influence on all the countries of the world at some point of time in the history. America became independent in the, you can say, 18th century. And ever since that attainment of independence, America has been moving on economically, scientifically, technologically, and because it is one of the most powerful countries in the world. And many people believe that it is not only one of the most powerful countries, the only most powerful country in the world. Means no country in the world as of now is as much resourceful, as much technologically, scientifically sound, educationally sound as America. So all over the world, people, they want to learn either American English, standard American English, general American English, or the British English. But the problem is that which to choose and why to choose. British English to choose as the most standard, or the American English to choose as the most standard. Especially this can be a problem, or this can be a moot question for the people who live outside Europe and America, or outside England and the US. Because in the American continent, you have scores of languages. In Europe, also, you have many, many languages. So you have to take into account the confusion in making the choice of which standard English, American or British, should be taken, adopted, learned, particularly by the educators, educated students, teachers, education planners in Asia, Africa, and you can say South America. You have it's not a problem for the people who live in Australia or Canada or the US or England or New Zealand, South Africa, because these are some of the countries where English is spoken as the mother tongue. Even then, the South African variety of English is not the same as the American variety of English or the Australian variety of English. Uh, Even the two varieties, Australian variety as a country variety, as a national variety, differs much from the American variety. There are certain, you can say, humorous situations created because of the differences in the pronunciations of Australian English and American English or the British English. So one cricketer happened to be in Australia to play cricket match, and he was, you can say, asked by one of the Australian players, just by way of introduction or just by way of opening of introduction to be familiar with each other. The Australian asked the other one, "Have you come to die? Have you come to die?" And the one who had to reply, the non-Australian, maybe he was from India or he was from, you can say, uh, another country, or he might have been from the, you can say, what you call, Caribbean countries. And after a bit of confusion, he replied, "Why should I come to die? I have come to play cricket." So the confusion was because of the mispronunciation or different pronunciation of the word day, day. Sunday or Sunday or day. Today is a nice day. And Australians generally, they make, you can say, they have the long vowel sound. So day becomes die. You can say gay becomes guy, something like that, to die. So die was a hard word. Why should a person go to another country to die? And that situation created a kind of humor. So this is one example of which pronunciation is standard. Die, have you come to die? Have you come to day? Or day. But then in most parts of the world, it is not die, it is day. So a typical Australian pronunciation happens to be, you can say, a point of humor or a situation of creating humor when you go that way. Now we have so many other countries, Indian English, because in India also you have people, and it said that more than 15 crore people understand English. They write English, they speak English. More than 15 crore people. And perhaps this number of people making use of English in India is twice or more than twice that you have the people in England or in the UK. You have, you can say, about about 7 times or 6 times as many as you have in Australia. So now standard English to find it out, to identify is, it's a difficult exercise. And it said that differences in the varieties of English, the two most important varieties, and so many other varieties, if you Nigerian English, South African English, Indian English, Chinese English, Japanese English, you take any nation by name, and then you have a variety of English to some extent. But all these varieties are not, you can say, sought after varieties in the so-called prestigious institutions of education. Prestigious so-called, because many people may have doubts about why do you call an institution of education very prestigious, because the prestige word itself is controversial. What you consider to be prestigious, what are your criteria to, you can say, fix something or to identify something as prestigious may not be accepted by other people. Uh, so it happens as you have controversies about the existence of God. You have the controversy about good language, bad language, a civilizing language, and you can say, or you may say, a language that is vulgar, that doesn't civilize, rather rob whatever civilization is there in society. So it is occupation. If people are in different occupations, uh, maybe in Australia itself, suppose farming occupation and the political science, you can say, teaching department, or you can say a domain of English in Australia for science and technology, another domain for culture, for painting, for handicrafts and all. So different occupations have different or more or less specific vocabulary that we call ESP, English for specific purposes. So even within Australia, You have different occupations, different professions, different social, economic, technological, scientific functions. And English as one language is used in all these with certain variations. So you don't have uniformity in the use of English even in Australia. In a country like America, which is huge and where you have people from all over the world. You have Spanish people, French people, German people, Asian, South Asian, African. So all these people, they live in a country and they speak English if they speak in their own ways. And it is also evident as great linguist David, and you can say David Crystal, one of them, Halliday, another, and everybody accepts that it is the mother tongue. It is the first language that influences or that affects the use of English as a second language or as a foreign language or as a world language. Means you have your mother tongue, you have your first language. So when you speak English, and if you are not educated consistently in the English medium or the English medium of the standard type, where you have people who have, you can say, mastery over English pronunciation, you have again pronunciation, spelling, certain differences between American English. So Theatre, the British spelling, British orthographical, you can say, arrangement, and you have Theater, that is American spelling. But even between these two varieties, you don't have many differences in terms of spellings or orthography. There are, for example, center or suppose fulfill. So somewhere you have double L, somewhere single L. So uh, the differences in the varieties of English, if you consider 100 countries, 100 varieties because of the influence or because of some sort of impact of the local language, the first language. Therefore, it is a proven fact that there has to be some sort of affectation, some sort of artificiality, or some sort of deviation from the so-called standard English. But then this point has to be remembered that you have more uniformity in writing system of English. An African writing a letter to an American, or an African writing a letter to his country fellow, to his own person somewhere, he would be writing perhaps more uniformly than he would be speaking to a person from South Africa who lives at a distance or in another state of South Africa. It is therefore important to understand that there is more uniformity. There is no absolute uniformity, neither in writing nor speaking. But when we compare the likelihood of higher uniformity, then we find out it is the written variety of English where you have more uniformity. An American will be writing almost the same way as a South African or as an Australian. But when it comes to pronouncing, when it comes to speaking, then you have differences in intonation, you have differences in the fall and rise, you have differences in the placement of emphasis, accents, or you can say the absence of accent on words by the speakers. Mm, It is therefore important to note that the standard variety of English is that variety which is accepted all over the world. And who are the people who accept the genuineness of standardness of a variety of English? It is the people who come out of the most prestigious universities of the world, highly educated people. When they speak, suppose highly educated and a nicely educated person in the medium of English from South Africa, from India, from China, will more or less be speaking as, you can say, writing as an American, as an Englishman. In matters of pronunciation, there will be differences. So, if there is a Chinese and he follows RP English, received pronunciation English, or the King's English, then even if he is not as competent in using the RP as an Englishman is, as an American is speaking in the American variety, you are close. So differences will remain in the usage of English, both in written and spoken varieties, but the differences will be minimal. So when the speakers or the users of English all over the world, when they find out that the differences are the minimal, then their speeches, their writings are supposed to be standard. Means very close to one another's writings and speaking. Then the confusion has to be, you can say, what you call, has to be diffused. That English spoken in India or written in India, if it is done by very educated, very cultured one who is steeped in the English vocabulary, English grammar, English intonation, then he won't be or she won't be or they won't be much different from the Americans or the English people. But in a huge country like India, you have different languages. You have 20 languages enlisted in the Constitution of India, and these are regional languages. So a Bengali is speaking, suppose in English, and if he is not educated in the English medium of the, again, standard, you can say, sense, where you have teachers who have followed what you call that Daniel Defoe's dictionary of pronunciation, English pronouncing dictionary. So if you follow the pronunciation of, that is determined or that is set in the dictionary, then you are almost close to the standard. But if you don't follow, then you may pronounce the word Aristotle as Aristotle. A Bengali speaking who is not conversant with the pronunciation, British pronunciation or American pronunciation, he doesn't pronounce the word Aristotle, but he pronounces Aristotle, as if suppose you have the name of a place, so you pronounce that place name in the way that the local people pronounce. It is the problem, or this is the problem, that standard English is that English which conforms to English grammar, which conforms to English pronunciation, either British variety or American variety. You don't have to follow other varieties, they say, because America is a country now at present that aids the education system or the education, suppose, mm, function in different countries. Britishers also aid what we call education in the English medium, where people don't have money, they send volunteers, they send teachers, they send trainers. Americans send trainers, teachers. They provide them with the books, and library facilities are, you can say, made available to these people outside Europe and America. And so you have the influence, or you have, you can say, the attempt on the part of the learners of the people, learners of the countries of Asia and Africa, elsewhere, and they either follow the British or the American. But in a country like India, you see, you have a Punjabi speaking English, he may have problems of vocabulary. So sometimes he insert or he switches codes from English to Punjabi. A Punjabi word is used in English. A word a person doesn't know, and he makes use of the Punjabi word. A Tamil word can be put in place of an English word if the Tamil person speaking English doesn't have the proper, you can say, word to be used at that moment. So many languages, so many dialects, so many regional, you can say, tongues, and these tongues, these languages, these dialects have an impact on the writing system and the speaking system of the people. Mm, in a way, we can say that standard English is that English which is spoken or written by the people who follow the grammar strictly, or more or less strictly, follow the pronunciation patterns more or less strictly, follow vocabulary, no diction, they say vocabulary, that right word in right place. You have something to say, A sensible word is that, sensible. Reasonable is a word. So you have two words, sensible. He is sensible, he is reasonable, he is logical. But then there are no two words or no two linguistic items or phrases or idioms which can be used interchangeably in all situations. One can take the example of this glad and happy. These two words, English words, are often used by people. I'm so glad meeting you. I'm so happy meeting you. I'm so glad to receive you. I'm so happy to receive you. So, glad and happy, these two words are interchanged in the same situation. Uh, but these two words, even if they are so close, they can't be exchanged in this situation. You can't wish somebody, I wish you a glad birthday. You have to, I wish you a happy birthday. I have, I extend all the best wishes for the occasion of your happy birthday. Glad birthday, we don't say. We don't wish one another glad new year. I wish you a glad new year 2022 or 2021. I wish you a happy new year. So vocabulary means proper words in proper situations. We have synonyms, we have antonyms. So which antonym of which word has to be used in what situation? So when we have a proper knowledge of the usage of vocabulary, usage of pronunciation, usage of, you can say, style. When you are speaking to a person, then you have to have one style. A writer chooses his style according to the audience that he targets. A speaker chooses the style of tonality according to the audience that he has to address. So, standard English uh, is a myth in a way. Very difficult to say, because what you accept as the standard English, there are people who don't believe in you or who counter you. No, no, for us it is the standard. For people who live in America or in the region of the US, they would be considering American English as the most, you can say, what you call, mm, uh, 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 most widely used standard English. But when you come to England or the UK side, or to the countries which once upon a time had been the colonies of the British government, then you would find another choice or another inclination, and they still stick to the British spelling when they write, British pronunciation when they write, because you have program, and program. You have, you can say, photograph and photograph, photograph and photograph. So some pronunciational differences are between the American speakers and the British speakers. So people who live outside both America and Britain, they have to choose one of the two standard English, and they choose according to their occupation, according to their chances of visiting, according to their number of friends in US or in England. But there are people, and they are acquainted, or they are very nicely conversant with the usage of American English and British English. So very cleverly they use according to the situation, according to the context. If they have American audience in majority, then they go for American pronunciation. When they have to write to these people, then they stick to American orthography, though American orthography is not much different from the British orthography in terms of writing. By way of conclusion, we can say that standard English is the English that is more uniform, that is more acceptable, that is more widely used at the highest level, because it is the highest level people who determine what is good, what is all right, what is to be continued with. So this is what I feel one can have benefit from uh, this stream of mine. What is the standard English? So standard English is a variety of English, and it is a variety of English accepted all over the world by the most educated, the most cultured, the you can say most clever users of English in writing, in speech, those who write books, those who make great speeches, those who make conferences and conventions delightful because of their marvelous speeches, marvelous drafts, and all that. So they are the people who are the leaders in the use of English. So when we make use of English according to the highest standard, and the highest standard that conforms to English grammar, English pronunciation, English you can say that choice of words, diction, then that is a standard English. So in totality, we can say standard English has to be, you can say, conscious English, English that has abiding impact on the practitioners of English, on the learners of English. It is also determined by what is the most popular choice of the usage, which variety of English is sought to be learned, sought to be pursued, sought to be acquired across the world. And that is what should be the English variety, or the standard variety. And as of now, the American English variety and the British English variety, these are the two most important varieties of English which are sought to be learned or which are sought to be internalized by learners of English all over the world. This much. Thanks a lot. God bless us all. Bye bye.